There it is. What is happening, everybody? It's time for MLB Live Before Lock. Myself and Matt Bellman, we haven't done a show together, and well, it's not been that long, but about a week or so. Breaking down tonight's MLB slate. Eric is out today. I'm also going to be on NBA Live Before Lock a little bit after this with Josh. And last night, we had a great NBA game between the Knicks and Pacers. This has been a wild NBA playoffs. It's been one of the more enjoyable ones that I can remember in recent memory, Matt. Maybe you have bitter feelings about it because the Cavs got eliminated, but the games have been sick good. And that was also the case last night with the Knicks-Pacers game. So I'm looking forward to watching the Thunder-Wolves game tonight and breaking that down with Josh. But before we get there, baseball with Matt Bellman. Do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm good. We talked a little bit before that Taylor Ward hit a grand slam as like the highest owned hitter on the slate. Was not good for my lineups, but other than that, I'm pretty well. And yeah, it's been a tough go for me in the playoffs for the NBA. It's been a struggle to keep my focus during these two games. But last night, man, the Pacers are they're vampires. They don't die. Like, I don't know how they're doing it. That was phenomenal last night, that comeback. And then the Halliburton shot, that was just drama to the nth degree. Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, I wasn't sure who I thought was going to win that series going in. Like, how do you not like the Pacers now after stealing that game? So, yeah, we'll see how it goes going forward. Should be a tight series throughout.
Yeah, crazy ending. Aaron Nesmith, who, I mean, he had like...
You mean Michael Jordan?
Yeah. No, Michael Jordan was not that good. Aaron Nesmith had like 8 fantasy points with 3 minutes left of the game, for like 40 or something like that. Absurd. He hit 6 threes in a row in like a 2-minute stretch or 2.5-minute stretch for Aaron Nesmith. So yeah, crazy stuff last night. One of the more fun games in recent memory. And I feel like I say that every other day about an NBA playoff game with the way that these ones have been going. But first, an MLB slate, we did have a rain out for the Orioles-Red Sox game. So it's a pretty short slate here. Probably not even going to need the full hour. So if you guys do have questions for us as we go here, super chats, whatever it may be, hit us up and let us know. We're probably going to be able to get to any and all questions. Well, actually, we're certainly going to be able to get to any and all questions you guys have, but we're not going to linger here and keep a whole hour from you guys if it's not necessary as we go, which I think is probably going to be the case with only a few spots to be talking about here. Any other weather concerns or anything else you want to talk about as far as the slate looks overall before we get into the pitchers?
I don't think so. I don't want to say straightforward, but doesn't seem like any weather problems after the one game got postponed. So yeah, just pretty good in that regard.
And also want to let you guys know that today is going to be the final day of our PGA Millie promo. We did have a sub win $1 million on Sunday. And I've also been bringing up during this read, Matt, is not only did he win $1 million on Sunday, he came in second in the $5 for $40,000, but it's a complete afterthought to the $1 million that Dr. Rex Goodfellow ended up winning. And if you guys want to give yourself the best chance possible to win $1 million like Dr. Rex did, here's a great deal for you. If you buy 2 months of Core All Access, so that's going to be covering all of the sports that we cover here at Stokastic, MLB, NBA, NHL, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA. Sign up with the promo code PGA Millie. You buy 2 months and you're going to get a 3rd month for free. We've got sims for all of these sports on the screen other than NHL, but we still have NHL player projections. We do have some simulation data on NHL, like top stack odds and things along those lines. But this package, it includes our sims for MLB, NBA, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA. And you're going to get 3 months of it for the price of 2 when you sign up with that promo code PGA Millie. So shout out to Dr. Rex Goodfellow for winning $1 million. That is a pretty sick accomplishment. I haven't won $1 million in a single day in DFS yet. Neither of you, Matt, but maybe our time is coming. But on Sunday is the time for Mr. Dr. Rex Goodfellow. Let's start talking about the pitchers on the slate here, Matt. And we've only got one real pay-up option. That is AJ Smith-Shawver, who at $9,800 pitching on the road against the Washington Nationals, it's probably a little bit more difficult of a matchup than we would have thought coming into the season. You got James Wood is broken out for the Nationals this year. CJ Abrams, who was great the first half of last season, but kind of sucked in the second half. He's looked back to form. As the lone pay-up option on the slate, what do you make of AJ Smith-Shawver at 40% ownership?
Yeah, I'm not playing Smith-Shawver here. Like, I haven't really been playing him too much. He's been really popular. He's been good. His strikeout upside is there, but his advanced stuff is not good, really. Regression's coming soon for him in a negative way. The Nationals have seen him. He just carved the Nationals. I get it. and I understand the ownership because of the context of the slate, but for me, at that ownership, at that price tag, I'm completely fading. Just really don't like it at all. How about you?
So running everything through the Sims, Matt, keep in mind, project for 40% ownership. I got to 11% of them in my top 150 lineup. So I like stacking against him. I like rostering other pitchers in his place. And it's not because I think he's the worst pitcher on the slate or anything like that. I just think he's too popular and also pretty expensive at $9,800 as well. I know we've seen some better strikeout stuff from him as of late, but I don't think going forward, this is somebody who we're going to expect to be a guy who's nearly a 10K priced pitcher. And, like decently rated prospect, has had good results this year with a 2.33 ERA. But to your point, some of the underlying numbers, he does have a 4.88 expected ERA. He has really benefited from a super high strand rate. It's something I bring up a good amount when it comes to sequencing and pitcher luck. He's an 85% strand rate, which is just astronomically high. Once that comes more in line with the league average of like 70-ish% or something, like a little bit higher than I think league average is like 73%, then you're going to start to see him give up a little bit more runs. And then on top of it as well, fine strikeout stuff with a 25% K rate, but that does expect to come down a little bit as well. The swinging strike rate for him, it's fine at 12.4%, not 10.9% for his career, but it doesn't really indicate a guy should have a strikeout rate in the mid 20% range there. So AJ Smith-Shawver, I'm on the same page as you. Even playing 150 lineups, he didn't show up in that many of them. And I'm actually curious. Let's see if I favorite just my top 20 lineups instead of my top 50. How many does he show up of the top 20? Yeah, kind of the same. So my top 20 shows up in 2 out of the 20 lineups there. So 10%. So he's somebody who I'm going to be underweight to the field too, Matt. It's definitely a little bit scary because pitching depth isn't great on this slate. But relative to ownership, I think or just relative to price, I think there's other directions to go. So you and I are on the same page there. Then in the 8K range, we've got a couple of interesting talking points. George Kirby, he's making his season debut. He's been dealing with a shoulder issue. And then you got Jack Flaherty, who is, to me, just kind of priced a little bit incorrectly against your Cleveland Guardians as a result. He is super popular, 52% owned, but I kind of think the ownership on Jack Flaherty is warranted, Matt, just because he's underpriced and the pitching options are thin.
I agree. It's definitely warranted. I'm not playing him because there's a couple of guys I like more, but I certainly like Flaherty more than Smith-Shawver. Just have more confidence in his stuff, and he's $1,500 cheaper than Smith-Shawver and a better pitcher in my mind. So if I were playing one of them, it would be Flaherty, but Flaherty is not my favorite pitcher on the slate. I don't love the matchup against Cleveland. I don't think it's an awful matchup, but it's certainly not a great one. And he's another guy, like he's good, but his underlying stuff is not great. And he's 50% owned, very much over-owned in the tools. We see that a lot. And if there weren't 2 cheaper guys that I liked quite a bit, then I would just swallow the Flaherty pill, but there are 2 guys I like. So if I were playing 150, I'd probably be like right at the field, maybe right at his top 2 pitcher percentage. So under the field, but in my minimal lineups, I don't think I'm going to get much to him at all.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable approach to be taking for tonight's slate. As far as Jack Flaherty goes, I'm slightly underweight to the field too. I'm not to the same degree that I am underweight to the field on Smith-Shawver. Because, I mean, if I was only playing 10% of both of these guys that showed up in my top 150 lineup, so then it's like, where does the exposure actually end up going? But Jack Flaherty showing up in 40% of lineups for me. So, underweight to the field. But to me, if you're choosing between the 2 chalkiest pitchers, I do lean towards Jack Flaherty, primarily because he's $1,500 cheaper, better track record of being a top starting pitcher as well. And then he also has pretty similar looking underlying numbers to AJ Smith-Shawver in terms of, underwhelming to what we expect from Jack Flaherty, 4.63 expected ERA, but the 29% strikeout rate he has this year, he had a 30% strikeout rate last year. He's got a 28% strikeout rate for his career. He's established as a really strong strikeout pitcher. So at his price point, just a little bit underpriced, certainly for sure. Cash games, I think you're playing him. You don't even have to play AJ Smith-Shawver in cash, even though he's really popular. I think you can make a case to going towards Tanner Bybee, for instance, just because he's cheaper and also fairly popular. I think Jack Flaherty must play in cash games for today. Any takes on George Kirby? It is his first start of the season. Haven't seen him dealing with a shoulder issue.
Yeah, I think they're going to take it light on Kirby here. If there was a slate to play him, it's this one on a small slate against the all right-handed Houston lineup. But there's two guys I like more than him. So, like, I don't feel the need to force him in. I like him more than Smith Shawver at ownership, but I like him less than Flaherty. So, right in between those guys for me.
I'm kind of curious why his ownership is as high as it is. I guess it's just because of how crappy the pitching is today and how limited the options are, but he was really limited in his rehab starts. It's kind of hard for me to see him going past 4 or 5 innings. And, we've talked about this Houston Astros team when you and I have done shows with the Astros on them. It's not the same offense as it's been in previous years, but I don't think that all of a sudden means that an $8,800 limited pitcher should be 33% owned against them. So George Kirby, also somebody who I have a hard time getting to as a pitching option because of the reasons that I just mentioned. I think George Kirby's really good. I think he's going to have a great season, but he's too expensive and too popular for a slate where I don't think he's going to be going very deep into the game. So with that said, we've talked about the more expensive options. We've got, I guess we'll include Tanner Bybee in this mix as well with these other options, 36% on Tanner Bybee. And then I'm curious to see who the cheaper pitchers are that you're liking for today. But what do you make of Bybee at $7,800? Because he is a pitcher that I'm liking to get to, and I'm overweight to at the moment.
Yeah, I like Bybee quite a bit on this slate, just all things considered. He's cheap. I'm going to take the other side of this game. People like Detroit and Flaherty as a stack and as pitcher more than Bybee and Cleveland. I'm going to flip that and reverse it. I like Bybee and a Guardian stack. So Bybee at 7,800, he's too cheap. He hasn't been great this year either. His underlying numbers aren't spectacular, but that's kind of what we're dealing with today. He's too cheap for his talent level. And I think, you kind of have to, pick your poison here, so to speak. And at 7,800, I'm willing to just ride with Bybee in this spot.
Yeah. And even those underlying numbers are, kind of underwhelming relative to his rookie season and last year, the underlying numbers for him still do look better than the underlying numbers for Jack Flaherty or AJ Smith-Shawver this year. And, I'd say probably the biggest concern I have about Bybee this year is the strikeout stuff has kind of completely disappeared, only 16%, but I'm willing to take that a little bit with a grain of salt just because of the limited options on the slate. And then also the fact that he's $7,800. So he's kind of priced for some of these struggles. But Tanner Bybee, 35% owned. He's in about half my lineups right now. So he's somebody who I'm going to be backing for today. Would probably feel differently about him if he was more expensive, but guess what? He isn't. So kind of is what it is. Who are these punt options you like? I have at least one guess of one guy that I think you like, but I'm curious who the others might be. I feel pretty good one of them is going to be McCullers, right? You're unmuted.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. It's not McCullers for me. I'm not really a believer in his stuff. He's cheap enough, and I think his strikeout upside is there where you could play him on this slate, but give me Mike Burrows over McCullers. I'm not scared of this Milwaukee lineup at all. He's been really, really good in the minors. He's cheaper than McCullers, even though basically the same price, basically the same top pitcher percentage. Burrows is a little bit lower owned. He's the highest leveraged pitcher on the slate. It's risky, but I think all the pitchers on this slate are risky, and he's talented. Like, I don't think it's crazy if he's the highest scoring pitcher on the slate today. I'm not projecting it like that, but I don't think that would be, outside the realm of possibilities by any means. And he's 6,200 and not getting love. So he's, honestly, all things considered, my favorite pitcher on the slate.
Interesting. So I'm over. There are two cheap punt pitchers I like that I'm overweight to field to. One of them is Burrows. The other one is McCullers. Unfortunately, I think my best guess, I think McCullers is washed. But there's a range of outcomes with these things. It's very rare that something is a 100% outcome. And when he
might be washed and still pitch well tonight, also.
Yeah, we see there are pitchers we know are shit, have been shit for years.
Right.
Patrick Corbin still has good starts here and there.
It's hard to hit a baseball.
It happens. Or sometimes you hit a baseball and just gets hit at a defender. Sometimes guys don't throw strikes and umpires call strikes 8 feet out of the strike zone. Weird shit happens sometimes where guys just end up finding themselves into, decent fantasy scores. And for a slate that's this small, I'm willing to take some shots on Lance McCullers. I do not feel good about it at all. I think it makes a ton of sense to be stacking against him as well. But just in the interest of trying to find out, hey, what do I want to do to manipulate ownership if I think that guys like Jack Flaherty a little bit overowned. George Kirby's a little bit overowned. AJ Smith-Shawver's a little bit. I have to play somebody at some point. And then I come to Lance McCullers, who his numbers this year are completely terrible. We haven't seen him pitch in 3 years either, because he's been dealing with all kinds of issues in terms of injuries. He's had trouble staying healthy for a lot of his career. He's had shoulder issues. He's had Tommy John surgeries. So there are zero positive signs, like absolute zero positive signs in his numbers this year. He's got a 7.88 ERA and an 8.74 expected ERA. So like you can't even say he's unlucky. He's been lucky to have a 7.88 ERA per some of the underlying. Now, it should be worse than even what that is. But at the same time, he's made 3 starts. He's pitched 8 total innings, and it's his first time pitching since 2022. So you got a guy who was formerly a top of the rotation pitcher, who's 13% owned at $6,500. It's almost certainly going to go poorly. But on a slate like this, I think it's a time to take a shot on him and just hope that maybe it's just rust that he's working off and maybe things could bounce back. I doubt it, but I'm willing to take shots on it at 13%. And I agree with you on Mike Burrows as well. I'm taking shots on Mike Burrows. He's the other contrarian pitcher I like. He is the second lowest owned pitcher on the entire, well, I guess him and Savali are kind of tied. They're both 9% owned. Trevor Williams, 7% owned. But Mike Burrows, to your point, we've seen almost none of him at the big league level to this point. He has made just 1 appearance. It was last year. He ended up going, 3 innings in it. So like no real takeaways from that. But in the minor leagues this year, he's got a 2.51 ERA. He's generating all kinds of strikeouts, 31.5%. He is 25 years old. He's not like a highly touted prospect or anything like that, but he's generated enough strikeouts in the minor leagues where another guy who, is it going to go well or not? It's hard to say. We've got so little actual big league data on him, but I'm willing to take chances on him. I don't feel any better or worse about him than I do about Lance McCullers. It's a real roll of the dice, but I think this is the more reasonable ways to get a little bit different on this slate, especially because the other low-owned pitchers, I don't have interest in Trevor Williams or Aaron Savali. Do you feel differently about those guys as lower owned options?
No. Now that you did talk about McCullers, like I also don't really see that much of a difference between McCullers and Burrows as far as like on paper goes and their upside, their ceiling and floors. I think it's similar. There's clearly more unknown with Burrows, but that might not be a good thing. So like I'm with you there. They look pretty similar at their ownerships. Everything looks pretty even with them. I couldn't agree more. I think Williams is interesting because he also is not getting any ownership, and the Braves are chalky, and the Braves haven't really been good all year. So you're getting direct leverage there on a small slate, which matters. And like Williams is not a guy that's going to strike out a lot of hitters, but if he can like just maintain this Braves lineup and they're not good and he gets through 6 innings, giving up like 1 or 2 runs, few hits, like he could easily be optimal at 6,300 because it's likely there aren't any like true elite scores on this slate from a pitching standpoint. So I don't hate Williams. I like the McCullers Burrows calls more. And then Savali, he's more expensive than those guys. I think right now, like if you asked me who the best pitcher is of that group, man, it's ugly, but I'd probably say Savali, but he also doesn't have a long workload or long leash, I should say. And we don't know what we're going to get out of him. He's only pitched once this year and it wasn't very good. So yeah, I'm going to stick with McCullers and Burrows, but I don't think Williams is crazy is how I'll put it.
Yeah, it's funny. I have concerns about every single pitcher on this slate. So at that point, it's like, why not take shots on the cheapest guys, pulling the least ownership that have some upside? Because there's not a single pitcher on this slate that doesn't have a red flag. They're different red flags. It's ownership. It's these guys have gotten a lot of good breaks where they've been lucky this year. It's George Kirby coming back from injury. Lance McCullers working his way back from injury. So all kinds of things on the slate that kind of give me pause. And that's where I land on, taking some shots on like a Lance McCullers or a Mike Burrows. Anything else you want to talk about as far as DraftKings pitchers go?
No, I'm just like recalibrating in my head why I even like Burrows over McCullers. I guess I don't, but like, it's not like I like McCullers more. I just think they're about the same. So yeah.
Yeah. James Sarcone in the chat says McCullers can't throw strikes. Could very well be the case, but he's also made 3 starts this year. He's only thrown 8 innings. I agree. I think the most likely outcome here is he's just finished, but it's like, look at some of the other things that we're looking at for the slate. And to the comparison between the two, we got Mike Burrows, a 21.4% chance to be a top 2 pitcher. McCullers 23.2%, and they're projected for 13.5% ownership. every pitcher has a projected ownership mark where I'm willing to take shots on them. If McCullers was 28% owned, I'd probably aggressively be stacking against him today. But he's low enough owned where I'm willing to roll him out in lineups. Let's look at the FanDuel side of things now, Matt. And on FanDuel, kind of similar as far as the chalk goes, AJ Smith-Shawver, 36% owned, Jack Flaherty, 32% owned. Between the two of them, I lean towards Flaherty in cash. For yourself?
Yeah, I also lean Flaherty. Ownership similar enough. Flaherty's 1,000 cheaper and the better pitcher. So yeah, I'm with you.
And then if we look at GPPs, we've already ran through all of the pitchers on DraftKings. It's not too much different in terms of how I feel about them on FanDuel, with the exception being I do find it harder to take shots on like McCullers or Burrows when you consider that how deep are these guys going to be working into games, and it's just not quite as necessary. So for me, if I want to get different on FanDuel, it's Tanner Bibee at $8,400 at 11% ownership. You don't need to go all the way down to $5,700 or $6,600. So if I'm just building one single entry lineup for FanDuel, it would be Tanner Bibee and GPPs. For cash games, I lean towards Flaherty. Would you still be looking to take shots on Burrows or McCullers on FanDuel for tournaments?
I mean, I'm never 0.24% ownership on McCullers, 0.02 on Burrows. Like, these guys have close to the same top pitcher percentage as like Bibee. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. If this ownership is true, 0.24 and 0.0, there's just no way. So like at this ownership, yeah, but like if they're going to be reasonably owned, and like on FanDuel, I'll say that's 5 to 10%, then just give me Bibee at like 12%. But if you're telling me that like I'm going to play in a small field tournament and be like the only one with McCullers or Burrows, I'll play one of them.
Yeah, I don't think they're actually going to be 0 and 0.2. Like I like a 0% ownership, probably not. Like it's going to be very low ownership, but it's not actually going to be 0 and 0.2.
I think they're low enough where you can consider it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. For me, though, Tanner Bibee, if I'm just picking one guy to rostering over for FanDuel. We do have a couple of questions in the Discord channel as well. Cap and Akella wanted to know our favorite single entry stack. That is something that we're going to be getting to in a little bit here when we talk about stacks. So don't worry, we'll cover that. And then Lucky wants to know, am I just doing 5-man stacks on this short slate for tonight? Yeah, my preference is to play 5-man stacks. I think it was on a show you and I were doing together, Matt, like 2 weeks ago, where I ran through some of the post-contest sim data and showed the difference in the projected ROIs for 5-man stacks compared to 4-man stacks and all the other ones. 5-man stacks are definitely the ideal stack type. So if you're playing 150 lineups and like the dollar, the 50 cent or something like that on a slate of this size, like you could definitely consider rolling out some, different stack types that sim out well. But in general, I do think it's best, and you're going to get the best post-contest sim results from playing 5-man stacks. For yourself, Matt, still 5-man stacks for today, or changing the strategy up a little bit for the size of the slate?
Not really. I mean, I'll play mostly 5-man stacks. I'll play some like 4-4s or 4-3-1s, but like I don't care. Like that's fine. I'm playing, a lot of my stuff's hand built, or I'm running it through the single lineup simulator, stuff like that. So like I don't have like rules where I have to 5-man stack especially on a small slate like this, but most of my lineups will be 5-man stacking, because I get why people say like on these smaller slates, you just want to pick pieces, and the chances of like one team going absolutely nuclear are less likely. And sure, that's true, but like you don't need a team to go nuclear on a smaller slate. Like if a team scores 7 runs, like that could easily be enough to need to 5-man them on a slate like this. Whereas on a main slate, maybe not as much. So like, yeah, I think that, the how people point out that like a smaller slate is not good for 5-man stacking, I think you can go the other way with it also, and like say it's even better for 5-man stacking. So all in all, nothing changes for me.
Any other final thoughts on pitchers for FanDuel? If not, we will start looking at stacks for today.
No, I've never seen ownership projections like that though. So yeah, I'm with you. It's hard to like put in to contextualize it. Like, cause you're right. They won't be this low owned, but how owned will they be? I don't know.
And one more reminder for you guys. Today is the absolute final day to take advantage of the PGA Millie promo offer. Buy 2 months of Core All Access package, get 1 month totally free. This is going to include our MLB, NBA, NHL, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA packages. This to celebrate our friend, Dr. Rex Goodfellow, who won $1 million playing PGA DFS this weekend. So you want to give yourself a chance to win $1 million, or maybe you're happy winning an amount of money that's substantial but is less than $1 million. That's cool as well. Not everybody has to win $1 million to be successful. You will give yourself the best chance to win by signing up for our all-access package with promo code PGA Million. Get yourself a little bit of a discount there. So, Matt, let's go ahead now and start to look at stacks, and we'll begin by answering the question from our friend Kapanikella. I have a feeling you might have the same answer as me. You're building just one lineup in a single entry. Which team are you stacking in that lineup?
I don't think we have the same answer, because I think your answer is Washington, who I like a lot, and my answer is Cleveland, who I like a lot as well. Those are my two favorite stacks, but I'm going to say Cleveland. Lower in the top stack tool, but lowest owned team on the slate, I think. And you're going against Chalk Flaherty, who simply put hasn't been great. He's one of, if not the best pitcher on this particular slate, but he hasn't been great. So Cleveland is my favorite stack.
So it's funny you say that. I built out two lineups that I ran through the Sims for single entry today. One was a Washington stack. One was a Cleveland stack. And what ended up happening is the Washington stack rated out a little bit better. So I was like, I'll let that be the tiebreaker. I'm going to be really annoyed if the Cleveland stack, because like I was really split between the two. And if you look at the top stacks tool, I mean, there's a good case for Cleveland. They do show up as the most under-owned team on the entire slate. Jack Flaherty is the most popular pitcher. But ultimately, two things were the main tiebreaker was the higher sim ROI I got in the single lineup sim. The other part of it also, though, was when I was building out my lineups as well for 150 set, I came in well underweight to the field to AJ Smith-Shawver. And while I was underweight to the field to Jack Flaherty, it wasn't to quite the same degree. And he still showed up, 40% of lineups, which is pretty substantial. So ultimately, I decided that my preference was to play Flaherty in single entry and stack Washington. But I think both are really good angles. But also for 150 max, my most rostered team did end up being the Washington Nationals in the Sims that I ran. So Nationals are who I'm rolling out in single entry, Matt. I think that these are two spots where you and I both think the pitchers, Smith-Shawver as well as Flaherty, are overowned. So those are two pitchers where I think you're getting a ton of leverage by stacking again. So even though you and I are playing different lineups, I think we're kind of on the same wavelength with like the general strategy.
Totally. And I'm not playing single entry. I'm playing a few lineups, and I'm definitely stacking Washington as well. So like that would just be my answer. And honestly, like when you're building lineups, you're stacking more than one team. So it's quite possible that like a Cleveland Washington stack would be my answer, especially with how the positions work, because Cleveland doesn't have a shortstop, CJ Abrams, James Wood, easy to fit at outfield. So like it kind of works in that regard also, where they fit together.
Yeah. I mean, now, already doing the show, lineups built and reserved. I kind of wish now what I would have done is just entered more single entry lineups or more of the high dollar stuff and just split it up and play like the Cleveland lineup in some of them, the Washington lineup and other ones.
Sure.
But now I just hope that the Washington lineup ends up being the one that hits, and then it'll be a non-issue. We'll see though. We'll see how the slate ends up playing out. As far as ownership goes for tonight, we've got three teams that are pulling a substantial amount of ownership. The Seattle Mariners going up against Lance McCullers, the Milwaukee Brewers going up against Mike Burrows, and the Atlanta Braves going up against Trevor Williams. So, by the way, a couple of other reasons that McCullers and Burrows kind of make some sense from a GPP standpoint. We're also getting leverage against really chalky offenses. Of the three popular offenses, Matt, do you like any of them, or do you think all of them are overowned?
I like all of them. I mean, I don't think any of them are like crazy overowned. I just think they're all owned appropriately. I think Milwaukee is the one that's probably overowned the most. They're cheap. They're facing an unknown Burrows. So like Milwaukee would be the one I'd be apt to get away. Milwaukee and Atlanta would be the two I'd be most apt to get away from. I think you're going to see those two just really, really popular. Seattle will be popular, but they're actually really expensive. So they're harder to fit than Atlanta and Milwaukee. Again, I don't think they're like drastically overowned, at least projection wise, but I think they're owned appropriately, if nothing else. And the other teams are slightly underowned.
Yeah. So For me, I'm actually underweight to all three of these teams, not like in a crazy way, just slightly. My preference, though, is the Atlanta Braves. And the reason my preference is the Braves is because I get exposure to Burrows and McCullers, but I don't really to Trevor Williams. So I think that's one of the reasons the Braves just end up showing up in lineups. The Braves also, it's if you take their first 7 games out of the season because they lost their first 7 games, the record then starts to look pretty decent if you remove the first 7 games. They played on the road against San Diego and played on the road against, I believe they started the season with a 4-game series against the Dodgers in Los Angeles and a 3-game series against the Padres in San Diego. It might have been the series, the number of games might have been swapped. But otherwise, since then, because the Braves are now, let's see, 24-24. So they're 24-17 since the 0-7 start. They definitely gotten themselves back on track. Now they've got Strider back from injury. They got Ronald Acuna in rehab. I still think this is ultimately going to be a playoff team that should be good going forward. But Trevor Williams, a pitcher, definitely that I have liked targeting against in the past. And, not a guy who is good at all. And then also, I don't think he has the same potential to have upside in the way that Burrows or McCullers does. Burrows, just because he's a complete unknown, that just adds an element of like, who knows what this guy is. Lance McCullers, he's been good in the past. Trevor Williams is just a guy who's not good and has never really been all that good in the past. And then also is a guy who doesn't produce very many ground balls. So high fly ball rate, also a 12.6% home run to fly ball rate for his career. So he's a guy who's homer prone against a power happy offense. So I think that Atlanta also presents more upside than Milwaukee or Seattle does for those reasons. So give me Atlanta if I have to play one of the chalky offenses. But once again, the caveat being that I am a little bit underweight to all three of them when I ran everything through the Sims, and in turn got pretty heavily overweight to teams like Cleveland going up against Jack Flaherty, overweight to Washington going up against AJ Smith-Shawver. Any other offenses that are important to you for today?
So I think every offense is important, just in the context of the slate, just in the sense that like it might just be a medium output that gets the team up top tonight. So for me, playing a lot of Cleveland and Washington and Seattle. So Seattle's the other team. I'm not buying McCullers. The fact is that they're the 3rd highest owned team on the slate. I have them as the top overall stack on the board. This offense is really, really good out of Seattle. Been kind of waiting years for it to happen. I remember talking about this team last year, and we just wanted right-handed pitching against them no matter what, obviously, especially at home, but even on the road. This year, it's different. Just Raleigh's taken a big step forward. Julio had a down year last year, but he's been really good this year. Obviously, Polanco. So this offense is really good. McCullers is an unknown quantity at this point, but I'm more on team he's more likely washed than anything else. And the big thing with McCullers is he just doesn't throw strikes. He puts guys on base, and he's often behind in counts. So you get a good lineup like Seattle in this spot. They're probably overall my favorite stack on the board.
Yeah, there's a case that Lance McCullers just has 0 left in the tank completely. Like I said, I'm a little bit underweight to the field to them, but not like anything crazy or anything. I still have double-digit ownership to the Braves, the Mariners, and the Brewers, just underweight relative to what their ownerships are. In turn, mentioned getting overweight to Cleveland, getting overweight to the field on Washington. Those are my 2 most rostered offenses overall. Anything else you want to talk about as far as stacks go, Matt? If not, let's see if we have any other questions.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, no.
All right, so let's pull up Discord. Were there any other questions in there? Nope. Just News God sending out the notification that all of the MLB lineups are in and good to go. Sweet. So we will do our home run picks in a second. Also want to remind you guys that if you haven't checked out OddsShopper Portfolio EV, WNBA season, it is in swing. We do get a good number of WNBA bets that pop up in the tools. Those have historically been pretty profitable in our model. So more bets flowing in there. We've also got MLB ongoing, obviously, because that's the show we're doing right now. We still got the NBA games, so there's some bets that populate for that. And if you guys haven't checked out Portfolio EV, get your 7 days totally for free. They're on us. Check out the tools. Play around with them. See if they're for you. You don't even have to place any bets with it. I recommend you do. But if you just want to see what the tools are about, you get access totally for free for your first 7 days. Link for that is down below in the YouTube description box. Ready to do some home run picks, Matt?
Yeah, let's get after it.
All right, guys, you know the drill. Matt and I giving out our favorite DFS home run picks of the day, and also want to hear from you guys in chat. Let us know who you are picking to hit a home run today, and I'll read off some of your answers, and you can contribute a little bit to the show. Maybe some people will plug your players into their lineups as well if they need to fill out a spot for a last man in. But Matt, who are you picking to a yard tonight?
So usually I like to go really off the board, and this time I'm not going to do that. It's a really good hitter, but it's facing the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. And the last time you called this guy out, he hit 2 homers. Jose Ramirez taking Flaherty yard.
Okay. Jose Ramirez is my most rostered infielder on the slate. So I don't have an issue with that at all. I will give out my most rostered outfielder on the slate here, though, James Wood, which also
he's my most rostered hitter on the slate.
Yeah. So I mean, he's 17% owned. He's in half my lineups. So James Wood, I'm going with him as my home run pick. You've got Jose Ramirez. And let's see what chat is going with. We have Stacks going with Matt Olson. We got Ram33 going with Schneemann. We've got Emac going with Cal Rayleigh, a.k.a. the Big Dumper. I think Emac just want to say the Big Dumper. Benny Tingman has got Brian Reynolds. Max Video has also got Brian Reynolds. DGen Malen has got CJ Abrams. Hey, he's my second most rostered infielder in the Sims behind Jose Ramirez. Drake Baldwin from Ricardo Nelson. Rooster Slinky is going with Lane Thomas. And that's it. Those are all of the home run picks we have for today. So if you guys haven't done yet, do us a big favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. About an hour and a half, I am going to be on NBA Live Before Lock with Josh Engelman. So if you guys are playing the NBA slate tonight, come back in a little bit so you can check us out there. Other than that, thank you guys very much for watching. Have a good night, and I'll see you in a little bit. Peace.